Hello, I'm Casey.
No, I'm Fallon.
And this is Render the Darkness.
Where'd your hands go? That was just weird. Just going like camera.
I got my hands. Alright, let's do that again, okay? I'll bring the hands back.
I'll bring the hands back.
Okay, sorry. I totally forgot the hands part.
Yeah.
I was just watching you do yours.
Yeah, you really look weird, just like.
I was like, I know I'm supposed to be doing something. What is it?
What is it?
Okay. No, sorry about that. Let's get us a little fun fact now.
Fun fact.
Okay, so M&M in the candy M&M, the M&M stands for Mars and Murray, which is for Forrest Mars and Bruce Murray. Forrest Mars was the son of the Mars Company, founder of the Mars Company, and Bruce Murray was the son of the Hershey Chocolates president.
Ooh.
They got together, kind of joined forces, and created M&Ms.
Nice. I
There's
like M&Ms.
more to that, but the fact was more about what the M's stand for.
Yeah.
So.
M&M.
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 M&M. I was thinking that you could like say M off of the M sound, but you can't. M. You have to do that. You can't just roll right into an M off the sound of an M.
M.
Yeah.
M. You know, you were like M&M, and I was like, ooh, what are we going to learn about M&M today? You're like, the candy. Oh.
Oh yeah, no. I'm never going to do a fun fact about that one.
About M&M?
Yeah, you're talking about the rapper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never do a fun fact about that one.
What's wrong with M&M?
There's nothing wrong with Eminem. I'm terrified of the man. If I say the wrong thing, he's going to throw me in a rap song and I'm going to be doomed for life. I like the guy. That's why I'm not going to give any fun facts, because I don't want to offend him. And then all of a sudden, I'm his next line and everybody's coming at me. That guy is vicious with his lyrics. I ain't trying to be a part of that.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I've seen what happens when people try to fun fact Eminem. I'm not doing that. No, thank you. For the record, I like you very much, sir.
Yeah, I was fixing to say.
I like you very much, sir. That is why I will not do a fun fact on you, because I respect you and I do not want to offend you. How pretentious are we that we're like, Marshall Mathers is definitely watching this. Yeah. This is definitely going to get back to him.
Yes, PR people are like, hey, gotta check out this podcast. It's talking about you on this episode.
Like, I'm sorry, we're so pretentious.
That'd be really cool, though.
Yeah, but yeah, that would be awesome. How dope would that be? That would be the coolest. Fun fact, Eminem may one day see this. See, there you go. I did do a fun fact. I hope he sees this. That would be dope. That would be awesome.
So, if you have any connections to the Eminem.
If you have connections to one Marshall Mathers, a.k.a. Eminem.
Yes, please tell him to watch our video.
Please watch our podcast. We love you. You're awesome.
Yes, our episode. And give us
Please
some
support
feedback.
us. Yeah. Don't put us in a song, please.
I was going to say you could put me in a song as long as it's nice.
Well, her name is Fallon.
Yes. Oh, okay, we probably better get it, but that would be so cool. Okay, anyway.
That would be pretty awesome. See what you maybe do. You maybe go down a rabbit hole of M&Ms.
Yeah.
Okay. So on to the part 3 of the Ella Barham case.
Yes. Yes, this is the last part.
Sure.
Yep, last part. So this means it's going to be the last Arkansas.
Hey, we'll be rolling into California after this one. There's a shit ton of true crime cases in that state. Oh my god, like endless true crime cases in that state. Many. It's really sad. Yeah, really actually.
But okay, so let's go ahead and.
I just realized how awful that be putting that into a song form was. That was terrible. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Carry on. This is why I shouldn't be allowed to have sweet tea. The sugar goes straight to here, and then I don't know what the fuck happens after this point. I just become whatever this is. Hitting my mic, off key, off chart.
Going doo-doo-doo-doo-doo at the camera.
Forgetting my hands.
But, alright, so let's go ahead and get into this last part. So, Wednesday afternoon, the court resumed and called quite a few more witnesses. They would discuss where Ella's body was found, how she was found, and who had found her. At the end of the day, the defense basically tried to use tactics that would confuse the people in the jury or would discredit the witnesses. Now, they didn't make any of the claims that they made like they did last time in their opening statements about the axe murderers or the strangers that were seen close by to where Ella's body was found. Now, during all the testimonies, Otis listened to what all the witnesses had to say, and at no time did he seem bothered, and in fact, he didn't show any emotion whatsoever. Now, on Thursday, January 23rd, 1913, Sheriff Helm was called to the stand. The questioning started with asking about the axe and if he had put any kind of markings on the axe before he handed it over to the chemist for analysis. Sheriff Helm said that he did, and the prosecuting attorney Pace handed him the axe and asked him if it was the same axe, and he would say that it was. He then asked him to look over it carefully to make sure that it was the mark that he had put on it. Sheriff Helm would say it was, and the only difference was that the axe was now in two pieces. The prosecuting attorney then asked him if he would describe the axe the day that he had found it. He would describe the axe saying that it had light red stains that looked like blood, the eye was damp, and he had seen cotton or lint stuck where the handle meets the blade, and he would say that the handle was wet as well. The defense would object excuse me, and ask that the mention of the blood in the fabric be excluded. The judge told the jury not to take into consideration the blood and the cloth that the sheriff has seen because he wasn't a specialist, but just to know that he stated his opinion on what he thought it looked like. The defense attorney Mitchell began his questioning of Sheriff Helm. He asked him to again confirm that he's seen fuzz or lint on the axe, and Sheriff Helm said that he had. He then asked Helm to look over the axe and verify that there wasn't anything on the axe anymore, that it was clean, and that, he said yes. He then asked if he was the one that had removed any of the substances, and he would say that he didn't take anything off of it before giving it to the chemist. He would say that after the axe came back is when he noticed that everything had been removed. And while Mitchell was questioning Helm, he would tell the jury that the axe was found outside of Otis's fence, not far from the road that a lot of people traveled on, claiming that it was possible that the axe could have been planted. Now, next to testify was Hammond. He was asked by the prosecuting attorney about the axe, and he would describe the axe as having what he thought was dried blood on the handle, and the eye was wet and soggy. The prosecution's questioning was quick, and now it was Mitchell's turn to question Hammond. He asked him if he had just sworn that he'd seen blood on the blade of the axe and the handle. Hammond would say no, not on the blade. He then asked if he knew if it was human or animal, and Hammond would say that he wasn't sure what kind it was.
Okay.
Now, the next to testify was Alex Davidson. The prosecution asked him if he had seen Otis leave their home on the day of the murder. Alex would say that he did, that Otis left around 4 p.m. that day to set a trap. He was asked if he had had an axe with him, and he said no. So, really surprised that he had changed his story. The prosecutor questioned Alex harder, and Alex would stick to the second story, saying that he was wrong about the time Otis had left and where he had originally gone.
Well, that's not going to look very good for you, Alex.
No, not
They
at
were
all.
already gunning for you, and now you're changing your story. That's not going to help.
No, it's not good. Don't change.
Don't ever change your story.
Now, he would say that Otis actually went to the barn, not the creek, to fix a door on the stables. The prosecution would keep asking about his different stories and the changes in the stories. They showed Alex a sworn statement signed by him, but he would say that it had been a mistake and that he noticed a week prior, and he had actually told Mitchell about it. Now, Mitchell began his questioning, and Alex go over that morning's events.
That's a pretty big mistake to make.
Yeah, the time.
Yeah.
Like if he did or didn't have an axe.
Yeah, like he did have the murder weapon. Oh, he didn't have the murder weapon.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big mistake to make.
I will agree. Now Alex would say that him, Lair, and Otis went to the creek to place dynamite under a rock to kill a skunk, and that they went back home around 10 a.m.
Oh, Otis.
And not too long after that, Otis left with the axe and went to the barn. Now, Ella passed by their house around 11 a.m. Now, Mitchell's questioning would show the jury that Alex had guessed at the times that Otis had left on the day of the murder, and that he didn't really know when Otis had left and come back. Now, the prosecuting attorney Pace would begin their questioning again. They asked Alex to describe what he had done on the morning of the murder. He would say that he ate breakfast, fed the hogs, went to the creek, and came back around 10 a.m. He would say that they may have been back on the property about 20 minutes before Ella had passed by at 11. Now, Pace would then ask Alex if he had not said earlier that Otis had left around 12 p.m. going towards Bryant's home and was gone close to 2 hours, come back home, and left again taking the axe with him. Now, Alex would say again that he had made a mistake.
All right, now. Something fishy going on here.
Now, Mitchell stood up and asked if the jury could be dismissed while they had a private discussion, and the judge agreed. He also asked that all of Alex's testimony be withheld and only allow the part about when Otis left with the axe.
I bet they said absolutely not to that question.
Now, Pace would argue that the jury had the right to hear all the testimony.
Absolutely.
And use it as they saw fit during the trial.
Absolutely.
And the judge would say he would decide after looking at the law a little more closely. The jurors came back in and Alex was dismissed.
So when he and Otis were arrested or whatever, were they together or were they separated?
You're talking about Lair?
Yeah, Lair. Were they together or were they separated?
Otis was arrested first.
Yeah.
And Lair was arrested, but they were kept separate so they couldn't talk.
Okay.
Now, the next witness was a witness that people had been waiting for. Dr. William, hopefully I said this correctly, Mangelsdorf from Little Rock, who was the chemist for the state. Prosecuting attorneys would ask questions and would prove that the doctor was very well qualified and an expert witness. The doctor was shown the axe, and he would say that it was the one that Sheriff Helm had given him on December 31st. He was then asked how the axe looked when he first received it. He would say that he's seen 2 discolored spots about the size of a dollar coin. There was another spot on the eye of the axe, and it was stained on the front. He also said he found about 6 strands of fibers that were stuck to the rough part of the handle, and some of those were stained as well. He would say he took some of the material and put it under a microscope and said that they were from a cotton type of cloth. He also took some of the stain from the side of the axe as well as the eye, and they tested positive as blood. He would then do further testing to see if it was human or animal. Now, he would do that test 3 times to see if it was human or animal. All 3 times, it come back as being human blood.
Okay.
Now, defense attorney Mitchell would question the doctor next. But all that did was further convince the jury how well qualified he was to say if it was human blood or not. However, getting desperate, Mitchell asked the doctor if there was another animal that had human-like blood. The doctor would say yes, an ape. And Mitchell would ask.
Gosh.
Yeah, and Mitchell would ask then, how could he be sure that it wasn't the blood of an ape?
Oh my gosh.
The doctor would say that their blood isn't identical, only similar. Now, the doctor was then dismissed, but Mitchell said to the judge, quote, I want time to examine, to consult some books and some witnesses, and I desire to move for the exclusion of evidence relative to the axe.
Oh my God. He's not running with that gorilla thing, is he?
I will state my reason now. At this time, they have not shown a clear identification of the axe. The axe laid out 2 days in front of the road. They have not shown it had not been tampered with before it came into the hands of the sheriff. It got into the hands of different parties. That identification had not been explicit. They have not made a complete identification. Now, the judge overruled his request not to have the axe used as evidence. Next, the state would question Dr. Mangelsdorf again. He was asked where the axe was kept. He would say it was in a locked closet with only 1 key, and he was the only one who had access to that key. He would also say that he had done all the tests himself and there were no chemicals in the closet at the time that the axe was locked away. He was then asked where he had the axe on the train, and he would say it was by his side at all times, even on the table while he ate. So he never left that axe alone. So nobody could tamper with it.
Okay. That's a little weird. I mean,
well,
it was like taking a shit, axe was propped up on the cabinet. Like, taking a shower, within reach.
Yeah. Now, the doctor was again told that he could step down. Now, numerous people continued to testify for the rest of the day and into Friday, January 24th.
Like, this kind of like a courtroom testimony, or this kind of like a courtroom thing, like, it's so insulting to the victim to allow something to become such a circus and so outlandish when trying to find justice for the victim. It's just insulting to the victim. It's insulting to the victim's family.
Yeah.
It's just like the epitome of lack of sympathy at this point.
Yeah.
At this point, they're so desperately trying to, even if they found who the killer was, or they think they found who the killer was, they're so desperate to get this person off that they'll say anything.
Yeah.
That's why I could never be a defense attorney. I could never be a defense attorney. I just couldn't do it. Especially if it was a case, and I'm not saying that that's the case here, but if it was a case where it was like clear this person committed the murder. Yeah. Let's say it's one of those, and you see it all the time, but one of those cases where somebody completely confessed in detail everything that they did. And then when it came time for the court hearing or whatever, they recanted their statement.
Yeah.
Changed it, took it away. You know damn good and well they were telling the truth the first time when they made that confession, but under advisement of a lawyer, or once they got more legal information, they decided it would be a better route for them to change it.
Right, yeah.
Like, there's no way as a lawyer that I could hear that, know somebody confessed, know they did it, and then still go into a courtroom and try to convince people they were innocent.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
There's just no way. Like, have a heart. You have to be... I don't know. You have to be a special kind of person to be able to do that, in my opinion.
Agreed. Now, on Friday at 5 p.m., Prosecutor Pace started his closing argument for the state. He would say that Otis, if not found guilty, would be taken by a mob. He would say that the evidence was so strong that the defense couldn't disprove any of it, and that if he was set free, his safety wasn't guaranteed. He would also claim that the fiber found on the axe was from Ella's hat, and that it was used to clean... It was from Ella's hat, and that it was used to clean it and then destroy. Not 100% sure where he got that information from, but... Now at 6:45 p.m., the court adjourned for dinner and resumed at 7:15 p.m. Defense Attorney Mitchell would speak on Otis's behalf. He would say, based on the alibi given by his mother and his sisters, he was home during the murder, so he couldn't have done it. He would also say that all of the evidence was circumstantial and there was no blood found on Otis. His prints didn't match the ones from the creek, and there wasn't any proof that the gun actually belonged to Otis. The court was adjourned until 7:30 the next morning. Prosecuting Attorney Sewall went over everything with the jury again, the evidence and how Ella's body had been found. He would say that the defense didn't prove any of the evidence and reminded them of how Alex changed his story by saying, quote, Alex Davidson, a witness in this case before the coroner's inquest and before the grand jury, testified that he testified in those courts that he saw Otis Davis leaving the residence of his father between 12 and 1 o'clock the day of the killing, with an axe on his shoulder. Now he testifies in this case he was mistaken in those statements, and that he saw Otis Davidson with an axe in the morning, and that he was going out to fix the barn door. Now, gentlemen of the jury, you will have a right to consider this testimony of Alex Davidson in regard to when he saw the defendant with the axe. He would also point at Otis and say, quote, you have a right to consider this conversation with Miss Ella Barham in the presence of her sister. Gentlemen of the jury, so unexplained and undenied by anyone and unexplained by anyone, and I call on them now to explain this conversation if untrue. Now, between the hours of 3 and 4 p.m., Sewall finished with his closing argument. Now, the judge, knowing the enragement of the townspeople, would say that if Otis is acquitted, no one had better lay a hand on him while he leaves the court or any other time. If they do that, that person will be subject to the law as hard as Otis was. A little bit before 4 p.m., the judge had the jury go and deliberate. Waiting for the verdict, Otis was sent back to jail, and people could now see that he was getting a little bit nervous there. Now, as people waited for the verdict, the Arkansas Gazette published this article. Immediately after the jury left the room, the crowd filed slowly through the door to gather in sullen but expectant groups about the streets. None declared that he intended to do violence, but it was freely declared by many that unless a verdict was reached tonight, there might be something doing. Practically every man apparently had his own belief as to guilt or innocence of Davidson and was willing to allow the law to take its course, but should the verdict not be in accordance with his views, then trouble might be expected. Why didn't Otis Davidson take the stand if in his own behalf? Why was he afraid to testify before the jury, who was as willing to hear his side of the story as that of the prosecution? These and hundreds of other questions were asked among the groups scattered about the streets. There's something wrong with my dang voice.
I wasn't going to say nothing.
Oh, I can hear it. It's like...
Oh, you were talking about the scratchy.
Yeah, like my voice is starting to get like really weird. I did that last time too.
I mean, you're not used to talking this much.
Oh man, it's only been 21 minutes. But yeah, my throat is just like, nah. Okay, so, people were wondering why Otis didn't get on the stand to try and clear his name. People thought that if he was truly innocent, then he would have gotten up to testify during the trial. Now, because he's worried about Otis's safety, Mitchell asked to speak to the judge in private. After talking for a while, they both thought that it would be in Otis's best interest to take him back to Berryville jail to wait for the verdict. The defense wrote an agreement and signed and gave it to the clerk for him to record, and it said, quote, "Comes the defendant by his attorneys B.B. Hutchins and E.G. Mitchell and agree that in case the defendant is removed from the Boone County Jail to another place for safekeeping, and that he may not be liable to molestation by parties who might desire to do him violence, that in case a jury that now has his case in charge agree upon verdict, that said verdict may be returned into court into the absence of the said defendant, Otis Davidson. To this end, we hereby waive any right that he may have to be present in court at the time such verdict is rendered."
Well, that's interesting.
Hmm.
I didn't know they could do that.
I didn't either. Now, the judge then had Sheriff Helm move Otis to Berryville jail because Sheriff Helm was worried about a possible mob if Otis was found not guilty, he knew that he needed to stay. So he had a deputy take Otis, and they left around 5:45 p.m. that Saturday. Now, when the verdict was read, Otis wouldn't be in the courtroom, let alone the town to hear it.
Where the hell was Otis?
He went to Berryville.
Huh.
Now, after 4 hours of deliberation, the jurors came back with their verdict a little before 8 p.m. Saturday, January 25th. J.N. Ferris said that they had agreed on a verdict. He was then told to give it to Clerk Hathcote, and then he was told to read it aloud. He would say, "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder as charged in the indictment." Now, the judge would say that they didn't write it correctly, that they had to use first-degree murder, and sent them back to fix the problem. So they came back, and it was read aloud again, this time saying, "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment." Now, on Sunday, January 26, Otis was read the verdict. They asked if he wanted to say anything, and he would say nothing other than that he thought he was going to be found innocent. He would also say that he was innocent and he believed he would be acquitted. He then asked to speak to his attorneys because he wanted them to take his case to the Arkansas Supreme Court. The officers asked him if he thought that he had received a fair trial, and he would say that he thought so, except he thought some of the witnesses had told untrue statements. Now, that day, Lair was actually set free on a $500 bond, and people thought that because he received bond, maybe the case against him wasn't very strong. Now, on Monday, February 3rd, the sentencing hearing began. Kansas and Lair were both there, Lair being out on bond and awaiting his hearing that was supposed to happen the same day. Defense attorney Mitchell started by asking for a new trial, saying that there were 24 mistakes during the last trial, including the selection of the jury, the evidence, and the testimony from the witnesses. He then filed an affidavit by Otis saying that Otis never agreed for a waiver to keep him out of the courtroom when the verdict was read. He would say that Otis didn't even know about the waiver until after he heard the verdict. Now, if you remember, his defense attorney, Mitchell, was the one that wrote it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he was worried for his safety, so he thought it would be better to not move him or bring him into the town. So he kind of made a judgment call on that one.
Right, but now they're using it as, oh, well, he didn't know. He didn't know.
Now they're using it as a reason why, a postponing reason or a retrial reason.
Yeah. Now, the last part of
That's why it's so important that they do the shit by the books, so they don't have things like this to fall back on if they don't like the outcome.
Yeah, completely agree. Now, the last part of Otis's affidavit said this: I further declare that there was a blind, unreasoning prejudice against me, and that men were not willing to hear any evidence in my favor nor to credit same. That I dared not take a change of venue for fear of my life. The mob was in evidence everywhere. Yet I now here under my oath state that I am absolutely not only in law, but as a fact not guilty. Now, the defense would ask that the court make note that Otis was not in the courtroom when the verdict was read. After looking over the documents, the judge overruled the request for a new trial. Mitchell would object. The judge again overruled. Mitchell asked again that the court document the fact that Otis wasn't there when the verdict was read, and the judge again declined, saying that he wanted to hurry up and get the hearing done, but did agree to fix the bill of exception to show the objections. Now, if you're not sure what a bill of exception is, I didn't know. It is a bill that is it's formal written document used to object to a judge's decision or ruling during a trial, preserving the objection for potential appeal according to law.cornell.edu.
Okay.
Now, Judge Reed made his decision at 12:45 p.m. Otis was asked to stand, and the judge went over a brief summary of all that had occurred from the time of Ella's murder. He would say, quote, You have been found guilty of this crime by 12 of your fellow citizens of this county. Whether you are guilty, I do not know. The matter is now with you and your God. The law gives you sufficient time before the carrying out of the penalty provided by law to make peace with your God. This time, Miss Ella Barham did not have when she was taken from this world, but the law allows it to you.
That's kind of a messed up statement. Because he's like, okay, well, they found you guilty. You may be innocent, but that's between you and God now.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a messed up statement. Like, if he's not the dude who did it, judge is kind of like, oh, well. You're the one we chose. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not the guy, because I have been saying since the beginning of the case that I think Otis is a pretty suspiciously guilty person in this whole thing. But I'm just saying, like, in general, for a judge to say that, that's a pretty...
Yeah, I don't think they would get away with saying something like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty bizarre thing to say. I mean, he's basically admitting, like, I don't know if the verdict was right or wrong, but it's not between us anymore.
Yeah, no.
They chose what they chose. That's it. Off with your head.
Yeah, very much. Now, finally, the judge asked Otis if there was any reason why the law shouldn't be carried out, and he replied no. The judge then ordered that he be held at the Berryville jail until March 21st, 1913. He would then be taken to Harrison, and before it was dark, he would be hanged by the neck until dead. Now, by Arkansas law, they had to wait at least a month before they could execute Otis. His lawyers would try to file an appeal, but was quickly denied, and he was taken back to Berryville. He would now have to rely on the Arkansas Supreme Court's decision. On March 13th, Mitchell and Trimble gave the bill of exceptions to the circuit court clerk in Harrison, and they were filed to be recorded the next day. The bill included the testimonies made during the trial and the exceptions that were raised. The judge signed them on Saturday, March 15th. Later that day, Mitchell sent the request for the appeal and the bill of exceptions to the Arkansas Supreme Court. Now, on Monday, March 17th, the documents were filed, and the court gave them 35 days, which would be on April 21st, to get their case together. April 21st, Mitchell put in their 35-page summary with a 29-page abstract of record that gave a brief description of the case and verdict, as well as the actions that have happened since. And John Streepy and Gus Sewall were given copies of the documents, and they were given until May 19th to defend the stance of the lower court. Apparently, they didn't need that long and asked on May 12th that the oral argument be scheduled for May 19th, the actual day they were supposed to have their brief ready. The court granted the request, but the defense claimed that they didn't know about the change until Thursday, May 15th. Mitchell then asked for more time to work on the argument, and it was filed on Saturday, May 17th. In the motion, he had asked for 2 more weeks, but it was too late for the judge to really push back the argument, so it would continue as scheduled on May 19th, whether they were completely prepared or not.
Okay.
On Monday, May 19th, 1913, the appeal hearing began. Both sides went back and forth with their evidence and witnesses. They also touched base on the fact, again, that Otis wasn't there to hear his verdict, and Mitchell asked that he be set free. Sewall would ask that the verdict be upheld. On June 9th, 1913, the Arkansas Supreme Court ruled and stated, quote, "Upon an examination of the whole record, we are convinced that the case was fairly tried below and that the evidence was sufficient to sustain the conviction. The judgment is therefore affirmed." On Sunday, August 10th, one day before the execution, Otis would say that he wasn't afraid to die. With a tear in his eye, he asked Mitchell to write down his dying words and told him not to read them until after his death. Later that day, the only family member to go see him was his sister Cora, who had kissed him and told him goodbye. On Monday, August 11th, Otis got dressed in a black suit and waited for his execution. At 10:45 a.m., the doors to the courthouse opened and Otis was escorted to the gallows. People were trying everything they could to get a look at the criminal. Some were on lampposts, roofs of houses, and trees. When Otis passed through the gates, a preacher said a prayer and sung a song. He was told to get up on the steps, and he did. He was allowed to give a final statement, and he would say, quote, "People, I am innocent of this crime and hope someday it will be known." Otis went back to stand on the trapdoor. Otis said goodbye and removed his hat. His hands and feet were tied and a hood put on his head and a noose placed around his neck. Sheriff Helm was the acting executioner and looked at Otis, and he would say he hoped Otis didn't hold it against him, and Otis would say, quote, "No, Jim, you're doing your duty since I was convicted." At 11:02 a.m., Sheriff Helm said, quote, "God have mercy on your soul," and cut the rope of the trapdoor. Otis fell 8 feet and his neck snapped instantly. Doctors would wait 15 minutes before declaring Otis dead. He was the last person to be hung in Boone County. His ashes were buried in Maplewood Cemetery in Harrison, Arkansas. On January 12, 1914, Lair's case was dropped because there wasn't enough evidence to convict him of any kind of wrongdoing whatsoever. And I know I didn't mention up here that he had Mitchell write down his dying statement. Mm-hmm. I didn't put it in here because it's pretty long. Okay. It is in the book if you want to read all of it.
I kind of do, yeah. I kind of want to read what he wrote.
Yeah, it's Remembering Ella. It's on Amazon.com. I'll put the link in here. I mean, like I said, it's really good. There's a lot more information that I did not include in here. So if you're interested to know, like I said, more details, definitely go check out that book.
Yeah.
But that is the end of the tragic murder of Ella Barham.
You know, I I spent that whole case saying that I was convinced that Otis was the one who did it or whatever, but kind of like by the end of that, I kind of felt like maybe that Alex dude had something to do with something.
Otis's brother?
Yeah. I kind of feel like maybe Alex was the culprit.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think they really ever suspected him.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's awful suspicious that his story kept changing so much.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he was trying to change it to protect his brother or...
That's what I think he was trying to do, but then again, I mean,
I don't know, I just kind of feel like Otis did do it by the end of it, by the time it was all said and done. I don't feel... Okay, I'm not going to say that I feel like he didn't do it. I'm going to say, like, I don't feel like they had enough against him to definitively say that he did it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Wasn't there, I mean, I know, like part 1 or 2 where you were talking about there was somebody that was going around killing people around that same time?
Yeah, it was the...
I mean, I know he didn't use the same method. I know it was a different method, but by God, wouldn't that be a way to throw people off your trail, to use a different method of murder than the one they're suspecting you to use?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, the only thing they really had was the axe.
Yeah.
And nothing else whatsoever lined up. And like, I mean, his lawyer said, it was found, I think on the stump or whatever, I guess like when they put it, but it was outside the fence. So anybody could have walked by and went, and it just gone. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
well, and you have to consider the time frame too. It's not like they could fingerprint or DNA or anything like that either. You know.
And I'm like you. Like whenever I got to the part,
like I was sure it was Otis until like this last piece right here.
Yeah.
And then when it came to that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe he didn't do it.
And that's what I was saying. I was like, man, it's like, I don't. I started feeling bad for Otis's friend.
I did. I started feeling bad for him at the end. I was like, maybe, but you know what? If he didn't do it, good for him for saying, you know what? It is what it is. They've decided there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to take it like a man. I'm going to get up there, and whatever they think they need to do, I'm just going to let them do it. And I hope to God my name is cleared one day. Yeah.
Now, in that book also, there is a chapter or a part called They Lied on Me. That part right there, if you read it, you can kind of understand, like I said, I got a little bit more of the reason why I don't really think Otis did it. But like I said, it's just...
I mean, it's so hard to tell with that time frame.
Yeah, it's...
Literally anyone could have done it.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I don't think the situation was the same. Now you have to be able to prove that without a reasonable doubt. Yeah. I don't think that they could do that back then because there just wasn't enough ways to prove somebody guilty or innocent back then. Yeah. Everything that they used for evidence in these kinds of cases and in the early 1900s was all circumstantial or by witnesses. There was it was a lot of hearsay and a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, there's no fingerprints, no DNA.
Now you can prove shit without a reasonable doubt or without any doubt whatsoever, but then you couldn't. I don't know, man. I just don't think Otis did it. I was sure he did it until that last part, and then my mind just kind of went, I don't know, man. He may not have.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm with you. I'm just like, I don't know. Like I said, I just kind of started feeling for Otis there at the end.
I did. I started feeling bad for old Otis at the end there. Yeah. But, if something like that is going to happen, then I think he handled it the best way a person could in that situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think I would. I know I wouldn't handle it that way. I would have been like, y'all tripping. I didn't do it. There ain't no way you're going to kill me. I would have got away.
But then again, you could also flip that coin and say maybe he took it that way because he did do it. And he knew there was no way to prove that he didn't, but he didn't want his name to be down in the records as the one who did it. So he just claimed his innocence until he died.
Yeah, I'm also kind of curious why he didn't get up on the stand either.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a reason, unless maybe his lawyer told him that he thought it would be more incriminating for him to go up there because they were kind of in the middle of a witch hunt at this point, just trying to pin it on whoever they could.
Because he didn't really say much during this whole thing.
Hey, he didn't really defend himself in any way at all. Which, if somebody is innocent, usually they're doing everything they can to defend themselves, especially if they know certain death is the end result.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, that they lied on me section, of course he says, different things there, so.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that.
Interesting case. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that the right person got convicted here? Do you think Otis did it? Or do you think maybe somebody else? Maybe the other person who was running around killing people in that area at the time? Or maybe one of his brothers?
Yeah, man, it's very well possible. I mean, it could have been, there's just no telling.
Could have been anybody at that. Yeah. Early 1900s could have literally been anyone. So.
But I want to apologize for my voice again. I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
I know what it is. I started a tail wars with her. She hurt her neck. It's messed with her voice box.
Although I didn't really explain what happened last time.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Last time was a long time.
Yeah, that one was way longer. But I will say that this was for sure the last one out of Arkansas in the 50-state series. We will get back to Arkansas at some point after the 50-state series, but ow, my tea. Anyway, But for the 50 state series, that was the last one for Arkansas.
Yes, and I will try from now on to make them not 3 parts, or 2 parts, or 4 parts.
And
I'll try to stick with 1 part.
And we're moving on to California, so still plenty of other states, still plenty of time for you guys to get your recommendations in. If you have any of the cases you want to hear, any more stories you want told, you have one you want to tell yourself, you're more than welcome to come on here and do that too. We'd love to have you. We were tossing around the idea the other day of possibly doing like a monthly giveaway on merchandise for the podcast. If that's something that you guys might be interested in, just shoot us a word like merch or interested or whatever. Let us know if that's something that you guys would be on board for us to do, because we would love to start doing a free giveaway for our listeners to show our appreciation for you guys listening to us and taking the time out of your lives. We know how important and valuable and precious time is, so I want you guys to know we appreciate each and every one of you. We really do.
Yes, very, very much. Thank you.
And any new supporters, we appreciate you as well. And if you like what we do, you enjoy our content, please subscribe, share, like, tell a friend. Help get the word out.
Make them watch it. Be like, look, watch it.
This is great.
Yes.
But other than that, I think that's it for this episode. We are
Render the darkness. You gonna do this?
Hands.
I can't do the thing.
I don't know if I'm digging the hands thing anymore. I think I might want to do something different. The hands thing is your thing. I might want to do something like really over dramatic, like, or something. No.
You do that, I'll do this.
That might be my next thing. No, probably not. You're welcome.
I
won't do that either, but I don't know.
Or you just get really close to the camera and do that.
Really close?
Yeah. No, not that.
Oh.
I was saying the eye thing. We did
Oh.
it weird a lot weirder that time. I just mean like where the camera where I can see your eyeball and then go.
I gotta find a new thing. I'm not digging the hands thing anymore. I like it. You like it, and that's your thing, and you enjoy the hand thing. You have a lot of fun with it.
I do.
It's not a thing. I don't like my hands. My hands is weird. Your hands is fine.
My hands not weird.
My hands is weird. I don't like it. I gotta find something else. By the time we do our next episode, I'll have a new thing. Maybe that'll be my new thing. That's not, no. I don't like that either. I'll figure it out.
Or we could do like the...
Oh yeah, maybe. I don't know. We said bye like 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, sorry y'all.
Bye.
Bye.